When he stepped off the old bus and onto the dusty road he once called home, he expected at least one familiar face to turn to squint to whisper his name, but the world moved past him. Like he was a ghost returning to a life that didn't remember him. Years had changed him, his voice, his posture, even the way he carried the weight of everything he'd seen and survived. But nothing prepared him for the moment he walked down the same street he'd grown up on, passing neighbors who used to greet him with warm smiles. Yet now looked right through him like he was a stranger drifting through their quiet lives. His heart raced as he approached his old house, rehearsing the moment his family would finally see him, only to find a locked door, unfamiliar laughter inside. And the crushing realization that time had erased him far more completely than distance ever had. This is the story of a man who left searching for a better life, only to return and discover that in chasing the world, he had lost his place in it, and how the truth behind why no one recognized him anymore would break him before it healed him. The bus rolled to a stop on the edge of Willow Creek, the small town he once called home, but the place looked almost nothing like the memories he had carried through the years. Ethan stepped down slowly, the weight of the past pressing on his shoulders like an invisible hand. His boots touched the gravel, stirring up tiny clouds of dust, and for a moment he simply stood there, staring at the main street he used to ride his bicycle down every afternoon. Time had transformed everything. Shops had new names, buildings had been repainted, and people hurried past with the hurriedness that didn't belong to the slow, sleepy town he remembered. He felt like a stranger, as if he were stepping into someone else's memories. He took a slow breath, tasting the cool air that carried faint hints of pine and earth. It had been 12 years, 12 long, complicated years filled with silence, regret, exile, and 1,000 moments he wished he could take back. He had left behind a mother who cried at the kitchen table, a younger sister who begged him not to go, and a father who called him a disappointment. That last word had echoed through his heart every day since. He came back now not because he expected forgiveness, but because he hoped time had softened the wounds, both his and theirs. Ethan shifted his worn backpack on his shoulder and walked down the sidewalk. A woman pushing a stroller glanced at him, her eyes briefly meeting his before sliding away without a flicker of recognition. Another man stepped out of the bakery, holding a bag of fresh bread, but even he didn't pause. People simply moved around him like he was invisible. And maybe, in a way, he was. 12 years was long enough for a person to become a ghost in their own hometown. He passed the old diner, the one where he used to work part-time, washing dishes and stealing fries during slow hours. Through the window, he saw the familiar counter Jules' new vinyl, but still the same layout. Behind the counter stood Mrs. Langley, her hair more silver now, but her posture unmistakable. Ethan lifted a hand slightly, almost calling out her name, but stopped. She didn't notice him. She was serving customers, laughing the way she always used to, and he wondered if she ever thought about the boy who suddenly vanished one winter night with no explanation. As he stepped away from the diner, the memories pulled at him like heavy ropes. The fights with his father, the arguments that sharpened into something uglier, and the final night when Ethan, angry at the world and himself, stormed out of the house with nothing but a duffel bag and a heart full of pride. He thought he would return after a few months, maybe a year at most. But life outside had swallowed him whole, jobs that wore him down, mistakes that piled up, loneliness that became a companion he couldn't shake. And shame, always shame, whispering that he couldn't return until he was someone better. Now here he was, standing at the crosswalk, staring down Maple Street, the street where his childhood home sat at the very end, under the shade of a giant oak tree. Was the tree still there? Did his mother still sit on the porch in the evenings? Did his sister still bake on weekends? Did his father still look out of the window the way he used to, expecting and resenting Ethan at the same time? Ethan finally took the first step onto Maple Street. Each footstep felt heavier, like the ground itself held memories he couldn't escape. He passed neighbors who once knew him by name, yet now walked past without a flicker of recognition. He didn't blame them. He had changed too. His hair was longer, face rougher, shoulders broader, and eyes darker from the storms he had lived through. But as he approached the final house on the street, the one with the faded blue door and that same giant oak tree, his heart pounded. This place had once held everything that mattered. Now, standing before it again, he didn't know whether he was coming home or stepping into another tragedy. Daniel stood in the middle of the street where he once raced bicycles with his childhood friends. 20 years ago, this road carried the laughter of kids, the smell of summer rain, and the shouts of neighbors greeting each other from one porch to another. Now it felt foreign, like he was walking through someone else's memory. Every corner looked the same, yet everything felt different. Time had carved the neighborhood into a place where he no longer belonged. He walked toward the old berry tree near the Miller house, the same spot where he had fallen at 13 and broken his arm. Back then, the entire neighborhood had rushed to check on him. Mrs. Miller had brought iced lemonade, Tom had run for help, even his father, cold, distant, and rarely emotional, had lifted him up with trembling hands. It was the only time Daniel had seen fear in his father's eyes. But now, standing under the same tree, Daniel realized how far away those moments were. He touched the rough bark, tracing the initials he had carved as a child, DS. Barely visible under the layers of time. He felt like he was touching someone else's life. As he continued walking, he approached the small grocery store at the end of the street. This store was once his second home. Ma and Mrs. Patel would always greet him with smiles, slipping him free candies when no one was looking. He stepped inside, hopeful. Maybe they would recognize him. Maybe someone would finally say his name. The familiar bell above the door chimed, but instead of warm greetings, Daniel received a confused stare from a younger man behind the counter. "Can I help you?" the man asked. Daniel hesitated. "Is Mr. Patel here or Mrs. Patel?" The young man frowned. "They retired about 12 years ago. I took over the place after they moved. Gone." Another door closed. Daniel swallowed, the heavy ache rising in his chest. "Do you remember a boy named Daniel? He used to come here all the time. Dark hair, always riding a green bike." The man thought for a moment, scratching his head. "Honestly, sir, I've heard a lot of names over the years. But I don't think I know who that is." Daniel forced a smile he didn't feel. "It's all right. Thank you." As he stepped out, the bell chimed again, sounding more like an echo than a welcome. The world had moved on. They had lived new years, new experiences, new stories. But Daniel, his memories stopped the day he left. He had spent years rebuilding himself, far away, surviving, working, fighting, changing, but somehow still believing the home he left behind remained frozen in time. The deeper he walked into his past, the more invisible he felt. People crossed by him without a second glance, neighbors who once knew him better than he knew himself. A woman pushing a stroller paused when she noticed him staring at her porch. "Do you need something?" she asked hesitantly. Daniel cleared his throat. "I used to live here. Years ago, before we bought the house." "That must have been 15, 16 years back," he nodded. "Well, welcome back, I guess," she said kindly but with no recognition in her eyes. His heart sank. Kindness without familiarity. A smile without memory. He continued walking until he reached the small wooden bench near the park. The place where he and his mother used to sit every evening, talking about everything and nothing. It was their spot. Their silent ritual. He approached it slowly, almost afraid to touch it, afraid that it too would reject him. When he sat down, the world around him blurred. He imagined his mother sitting beside him, laughing softly, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Mom," he whispered, voice breaking. "What would you say if you saw me now?" But there was only silence. The kind that felt like loss. And in that silence, Daniel realized the truth. Home remembered him only in his memories. Not in its people. Not in its streets. Not in the life that had continued without him. For the first time since returning, Daniel wondered. Maybe he hadn't come home, maybe he had come to say goodbye. By the time Daniel reached his childhood home, evening had begun to darken the sky. Warm lights glowed from the windows, and laughter floated faintly from inside. It was surreal seeing life continue in the very place where his ended and restarted all those years ago. His steps slowed, heavy with emotion. The house looked smaller than he remembered, or maybe he had grown larger, carrying years of weight, regret, and unanswered questions on his shoulders. He stood at the familiar wooden gate, running a hand along the old latch. It had rusted, but it still opened with the same soft click. Memories flooded him instantly. His mother standing on the porch, waiting with a towel after he played in the rain. His father sitting on the steps, lost in thought on nights he thought no one was watching. The evenings filled with the smell of dinner, the sound of dishes, the warmth of a home that had once protected him from the world. Daniel knocked lightly, unsure. Someone approached, two shadows crossed behind the curtains. Then the door opened, revealing a woman in her mid-50s with kind eyes, followed by a man around the same age. "Can we help you?" the woman asked carefully. Daniel swallowed hard. "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you. I used to live in this house." "A long time ago," the woman softened. "Oh. You must be one of the previous family's kids." "The couple who lived here before us, what were their names?" "Samuel and Karen," he nodded slowly. "Yeah. They were my parents," the man stepped forward. "They were wonderful people. They loved this house." Daniel felt something crumble inside him, not from pain, but from the warmth in the stranger's voice. Someone remembered them. Even if they didn't remember him, someone remembered his parents, and that meant something. "We found some old things in the attic when we moved in," the woman continued. "A box we never threw away. I thought someday someone might come for it. Would you like to see it?" Daniel froze. A box, left behind. He had assumed everything was gone, sold, discarded. Forgotten by time, his heart thudded painfully as he nodded. She led him inside. He stepped through the doorway, expecting to feel like a stranger in someone else's life, but instead, the house welcomed him. Not with familiarity, but with warmth. The air smelled different, the furniture had changed, the colors were new, but the heart of the home was the same. The woman returned holding a dusty cardboard box. "This was in the attic. It has your family's name on it." Daniel took it with trembling hands. On top, in his mother's handwriting, was written, "For Daniel, when he comes home." He nearly dropped the box. His breath caught, his vision blurred. His mother had believed he would return someday. She believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. Even when life tore him away. With shaky fingers, he opened the box. Inside were photographs, birthday cards, his old baseball glove, a broken toy car, and a small journal he hadn't seen since he was 15. There were also letters and opened envelopes with his name on them. Letters his mother had written to him after he left. Letters she never knew how to send. The woman spoke softly. "We didn't read anything." "We knew it must be personal," Daniel whispered. Thank you so much." When he stepped outside minutes later, the box cradled in his arms, the world felt heavier and lighter at the same time. Tears streamed silently down his face. His mother had waited for him. Even if the world had forgotten him, she hadn't. And for the first time since returning, something inside Daniel stirred a fragile, painful hope. Daniel walked toward the old community bench near the riverbank, his mother's favorite place. The box rested beside him as he opened the first letter. Her handwriting shook slightly, as if written at night, when loneliness settled heavier than sleep. "My Daniel, wherever you are, I hope you're eating well. I hope you're safe. I hope you know I never stopped waiting." His chest tightened. He read the next one. "Today is your birthday. I made your favorite cake even though you're not here. Your father pretended not to care, but he cried when no one was looking." Daniel closed his eyes, feeling something inside him break open. Next letter. "If you ever come home, please don't be ashamed. Nothing you did could ever take you away from my love." Tears fell freely now. As he continued reading, he noticed the letters grew sadder, the ink smudged, the handwriting shakier. Then he reached the last envelope. The final letter. Dated 2 weeks before she died. His hands shook violently as he opened it. "Daniel, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I want you to know something. I found your father crying today. He misses you more than he knows how to say. And I forgive everything. I love you more than my own life. If I don't get to see you again, I want you to promise me one thing. Don't let the world turn you into a stranger. Come home. Even if no one recognizes you, come home to yourself." His breath shattered. She had known. She knew he might come back to a home that no longer remembered him. She knew he might return to a world where he was a stranger. But she also knew he would need these letters more than anything. A voice suddenly spoke behind him. "You're Daniel, aren't you?" Daniel turned sharply. An elderly man stood there, leaning on a cane, thin, exhausted, but with eyes clear as day. The man stepped closer. "I've been watching you walk around town. I thought, no, it can't be, but now I know." Daniel stared, confused. Do I know you?" The old man smiled sadly. "I'm Tom. Your childhood best friend." Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. Tom. His partner in every adventure. His brother in everything but blood. The man continued softly. "You disappeared, Daniel. After you left, your parents searched for you for years. And when your mother died, your father broke. He left town soon after." Daniel swallowed a sob. "I didn't know. I lost everything after I left. I thought no one would want me back." Tom's expression softened. "Your mother would have run across the world if she knew you were alive. You were never forgotten by her. And your father, he loved you more than he ever said." Daniel whispered, "I don't deserve forgiveness." Tom placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes forgiveness isn't earned. It's given because love never dies." Daniel broke again. He sat beside Tom, the river flowing quietly behind them. For the first time in decades, he wasn't alone. The town might not recognize him, but someone did. And someone always had. His mother. His father. And now Tom. Daniel finally understood, home isn't a place. It's the people who hold your memory even when the world forgets you. And at last, he wasn't a stranger anymore. When Daniel finally walked out of the small wooden house he had once called home, the night air felt different, lighter, softer, as if the world itself had decided to release a breath it had been holding for years. Behind him, his mother sat silently on the edge of her bed, tears drying on her cheeks. She didn't say much, she didn't have to. The way she touched his face, tracing every line as if relearning him, was enough to tell him that she had never stopped waiting. Daniel knew the truth now. It wasn't that they didn't recognize him, it was that they didn't expect him to return alive. He stepped onto the porch, feeling the rough wood under his boots, the same porch where he once sat as a boy, swinging his legs, laughing with his father, dreaming of leaving and becoming someone bigger. Now, after all these years, he realized something heartbreaking. The world may forget you, but home waits even when it's broken. His younger brother stood by the old fence, arms crossed. Fighting the emotion trembling in his voice, "You left without saying goodbye," he whispered. Not accusing, just hurting. Daniel swallowed hard. "I know, and I've paid for it every day I was gone." For a moment, neither spoke. Then the brother took a step forward and pulled him into a tight embrace, one that carried every lost year, every unanswered letter, every night their mother cried herself to sleep. "Just don't disappear again," he said. Daniel nodded. "I won't." As the night settled, neighbors peeked from their porches, whispering, pointing, trying to connect this grown, hardened stranger with the boy they once knew. Some remembered only pieces of him. Some didn't remember at all. But it didn't matter. He wasn't here for the world's recognition, he was here for the family he walked away from and the healing he needed to begin. And healing, he knew, would take time. Before stepping inside again, Daniel looked up at the sky. The stars were the same ones he'd grown up staring at, steady, unchanging, patient. Just like his mother. Just like the place he had once rejected and now desperately needed. He took a long breath and whispered, "I'm home," and for the first time in many years, he felt the truth of it. If you want to hear stories like this, emotional, meaningful, and heart-healing, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Because each week we share life-changing narratives that touch the heart and remind us what really matters in the end. Thank you for watching. Your support means more than you know.